Pastor Rich here with the second part of Sign, Wonders, and Visions. Okay, my prayer slash vision. I started to apply Jesus' teaching in my day-to-day life by genuinely expressing my love for him in the way I interact with all people, not just family and friends, but strangers as well, from the bottom of my heart. I had about 2 months of high school left to graduate when my dad decided to move about 3 hours away from where we lived. I told him I didn't want to go to have to start a new school when I was about to graduate. So I talked him into letting me stay with friends. Then he can come and get me after my graduation. I did not tell him that I wasn't sure which friend I would be able to stay with, but he agreed anyway. He then took out his wallet and gave me $500 bills and said, "I'll see you in 2 months." Okay, finding somewhere to stay. I had befriended a Sky Juice man over the years named Bigga. He was a person that sold a syrup and water mixture frozen for $1. That's Sky Juice, we call it, for a living. He was temporarily kicked out of his home by his wife and was staying in a one-room shack with a kerosene lamp, and would have food for when Patrick and I would visit. If he wasn't there, he would leave the door unlocked with a note saying we could help ourselves to some food which he had made. I shared my situation with Bigga. My father and the rest of my family are going away, and that my father and family was moving away. And as luck would have it, he said his wife told him he could come home, and I was welcome to stay at his shack for a while. And of course, I accepted the offer. As time passed, graduation drew near. It was about 2 weeks away. After leaving school, I arrived at the shack to find a padlock on the door and nowhere to stay. I walked the town looking for Patrick without success. I couldn't find him, and we have never been to each other's house throughout our entire friendship. So I didn't know where he lived. We just always met up after school, stuff like that. We just told each other where we would be after school, and we walked until we found each other. There was one friend who lived in the town, and I knew where he lived. I don't remember his name, but I went to his house and told him my situation, and he let me sleep in a shed he had next to his house. He brought me dinner that night and said he was sorry, but his father told him I could sleep there the night, but in the morning I'd have to leave. So I said okay, and I thanked him for the food. I spent a few days with nature on the beach and street corners and storefronts after the stores closed. The money my dad gave me was spent about 2 weeks after he had moved away. Well, most of it. That was my teenage budgeting skills or ability. It was bad. I eventually bumped into Patrick. He took me to his house, which was out of the town in the hilly areas, the mountainous areas. It was a 2-room shack on the side of a hill with a slightly larger than 2-person porch. That night, while I was sleeping on a cot, I was awakened to the argument between Patrick and his dad. I heard Patrick, the words I heard as I woke was, "Him can't stay here." Patrick was saying, "Him can't stay," and his dad was saying, "Him can't stay here." So, because of that, Dad was trying to kick me out. Patrick was cursing in some Jamaican words, and then I just pretended that I was asleep because I was scared, had nowhere to go, and eventually fell back asleep. And when I woke up, it was daylight and no one else was there. I know I had to leave, but I didn't know where to go. I stood on the porch and stared in the distance, thinking how I would survive the rest of the days. I started to pray to God and ask Him why I was going through this. Now here we go. I said, I will continue to follow you if I know that you're really there. See, my ministry is a ministry of truth and evidence, physical and spiritual evidence, or I would not be here preaching. I don't know why I said it, but I said it aloud. At this, what did I say? I said, I will continue to follow you if I know that you are really there, but I need you to prove it to me. That's what I said. So, afar off in the distance was a beautiful white cloud, and listen to this carefully, okay? Like a pot of boiling water, the cloud in front of me appeared to bubble, then stopped. I wiped the tears from my eyes and stared in disbelief. I was the first one to disbelieve it. So I'm not offended by you not believing, but your belief don't change facts. It looked like a face with full mustache and beard and hair down to the side of his face. It looked like Jesus, but made of cloud. My understanding what Jesus looked like from Jesus of Nazareth. As if that wasn't enough, again, I don't know why I said it, but the next thing that came out of my mouth was, God, please forgive my doubt, but I need to know you are really there, you care about me, and you know what I'm going through. Desperation. The cloud appeared to bubble again. This time, if you were to look in a mirror and turn your face to the right, I'm doing this for you. That's you looking at me. That's your right, my left. Okay. A side profile of a face. As I stared at it, I thought in my mind, why does it look so familiar? Then I said in my mind, that's me. Then I gasped and my mouth opened. I went, oh! When I said that's me in my mind, my reaction was because I was so shocked, okay? Then I gasped and my mouth opened, and the image in the cloud mimicked my movement, literally mimicked my movement. At the same time, and right after that happened, at the same time I felt a presence to my left. I can't describe the presence, it was just there. So while that I felt the presence, at the same time that I gasped, I felt the touch on my left shoulder, and immediately my knees hit the floor. Immediately my knees hit the floor and I burst out into crying, more likely wailing. I wiped the tears from my eyes as I write these words, and from time to time when I think about it, about what I felt that day. When I wrote this in 2017, yes, there was tears in my eyes. And if I dwell on it and think about it, I don't anymore because it's too powerful. Okay, the feeling of what happened during that less than a second touch, okay? Since the summer of 1989, this is my first attempt at writing my experience of what I felt on that porch. And I wrote this in maybe ending of 2016 or beginning of 2017. I didn't put the date on it when I wrote it, so it's around that time frame though. Think of all your happiest moments in your life. Think of compassion when you see someone sad and crying and you feel for them. Tears of joy and tears of sadness. The way you feel when you see your best friend or family member, a father, mother, someone you love, all at the same time. all that emotion in less than a second. If the way I loved Tracy fit in a single cell in the center of my heart, then at the moment of that touch, every cell in my heart screamed all those emotions at the same time. That's why my legs collapsed. The love I felt was too much to bear. It was as if I could almost feel how much I was loved, and I couldn't take it. I'm convinced from what I felt was just a tiny glimpse of the way Jesus loves each and every one of us. But it cannot be fully experienced while we are in human form, and we have to wait until we are born again and truly embrace his love. I'm not referring to a born-again Christian, but I mean when he does return and we've changed, then I felt like I was going to explode. I felt like inside I was pressing against my skin, that if it lasted any longer I would have exploded. That's what it felt like. Okay, now my graduation was scheduled for Friday. I had an empty wallet in my back pocket, which I took out to look into. I know I had no money left, but I checked anyway and found a folded up piece of paper, which I unfolded and saw it had a name and phone number. I walked 6 miles to my school and asked if I could use the office phone. There were no cell phones in those days. I was the school head boy, so they allowed me. It was the Thursday before graduation. The next day, the Friday, was graduation. The number was to my mother in the USA. She answered the phone and said, and I said, "Mom?" She said, "Richard." That's how she says my name, Jamaican. "Richard?" And I said, "Yes." She said, and then I didn't even get to say anything. She just said, "You want to come to America?" But before she was done saying America, I said, "Yes." She then said, "Okay, may I go buy the ticket right now when me hang up the phone?" I said, "Okay." She said, "Just go to the airport and give them your name. The ticket will be there." I said, "Okay." She said, "See you tomorrow," and hung up. That day I spent the day begging friends and strangers until it was more strangers than friends. I had enough money, until I had enough money for the bus ride that Thursday night. Remember, this was from the morning. I kept begging until the last ride from Montego Bay to Kingston. So I boarded anyway. So to Norman Manley International Airport. I slept on and off, not wanting to miss the flight. I think it was about 6 or 8 a.m. I don't know, maybe around 8 more in the morning. So on the day of my high school graduation, while they were probably calling my name, I was on a plane heading to the USA, and that's in 1998. So now, after that vision is when I realized I started to have dreams that come true. And there are 3 specific ones that God told me that even though they are of me, a part of my life, they don't belong to me. I will explain that in the conclusion, 3rd part of this segment of my preaching / sermon, because again, this is all still a testimony of what God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit does in our lives. So I'm telling you, I'm teaching of a God that is alive. He is active in the world today, just as active as he was back then. The problem is the faith that we have, or the lack thereof. This is Pastor Rich. I'll see you in the conclusion in part 3 of Sign, Wonders, and Visions.